Welcome back to the beginner's course for consultants. So in the previous lesson I explained you how to package consulting services and now it's actually time to define the pricing for your consulting. So very often consultants, especially new consultants, ask me how much to charge for their services. So in this lesson today, I'll explain what are the differences between cost-based, market-based and value-based pricing strategies. Also which methods you can use to define your own pricing models. Then also how to set the initial rates for your consulting. And finally how to negotiate and how to communicate your prices towards your clients. So after you watch this lesson, you'll have a clear idea on how to set the price for your specific niche with your specific expertise and consulting services. Now, why pricing is important? Because of course, if you go too high with your price, then you will turn away your potential clients. But also, if you go too low, you will also turn away most of your clients because then they will perceive that your services are actually of low quality. Another problem with low prices is that your profitability will get hurt. Low pricing is definitely not recommended as a potential strategy. Also, if your pricing is not transparent or if it is not fair, this will also drive away lots of potential customers. So this is also something you should take into account. So let's dive into these things and show you what are the best practices. Unfortunately, there is no one set price for consulting services. And these prices actually depend on various factors. For example, this depends on in which country you're operating. Customers from different countries are willing to pay more or less depending on what is the general economic situation. For example, consultants in, let's say, Western Europe and North America are able to charge much higher prices than in the rest of the world. Prices also depend on the industries. So typically, financial industry, so banks, insurance companies and similar, are willing to pay higher prices than the rest of the market, whereas government bodies that are on the budget, also low-tech companies tend to pay lower fees. Your pricing will also depend on your experience. If you are in the beginning of your career, you'll probably not be able to charge the highest prices, but of course, as you get more and more experience and more references, then you will actually be able to charge more and more. The price will also depend on the perceived value of what you are offering. So the better actually you present the value of what the customers will get, the more you can actually charge. And I'll come back to this value-based pricing in a minute. Finally, the price will depend on if this is, let's say, a new thing. So for example, DORA or NIS2 are rather new frameworks. There are not many competitors, not many consultants offering these services. So the companies that have to comply with these frameworks tend to pay more. Okay, let's see what are a couple of pricing strategies that you can use. You can use this cost-based strategy, and basically this means that you are charging a certain margin on top of your costs of your consultant. And typically you'll use this strategy if you are in an extremely competitive market where you will not be able actually to differentiate yourself versus your competitors, or if you are renting, so to say, your people or your experts to your customers on a long-term basis. Then there is a market-based pricing where basically you charge according to what are the market rates in your country. So in this case, it doesn't matter actually what are your costs, you're trying to maximize your price according to what the market will allow, and you can actually go for this market-based pricing if you are at least a little bit differentiated from your competitors. And then there is this value-based pricing where it doesn't matter at all what the competitors are charging, where you actually show to your customers with what kind of value they're getting, and that in the context of that value, your price is this. So again, your price doesn't have to do anything with your costs or with competitors. You're simply saying that compared to the value your customer will get, your price is really very small. And of course, value-based pricing is basically the best strategy to go for, but you can actually achieve this only if you're highly differentiated towards your competitors, so that you're offering something so unique that no one else actually can get near you. Now, there are different types of pricing models that you can use for your consultancy services. For example, you can charge hourly rate. And this is typically fine for some very smaller projects or typically when clients actually asks you for some short consultations that are not really part of some larger project. And then there is this project-based or fixed fee pricing where you define exactly what is the whole project. what are the outcomes, what are the milestones, and you offer a concrete fixed price for this project. And this is typically done when you have this, for example, ISO 9001 implementation projects, or if you have some kind of a specific training project, let's say for ISO 27001, or if you're doing some smaller project, but still a project, so for example, internal audit or a second party audit of a supplier. And the third pricing model is this retainer-based pricing. So basically you charge, let's say, a monthly fee for some kind of a continuous service that you're providing to your clients. So for example, you might maintain their EMS, environmental management system, on a continuous basis, or you may act as their vCISO, so virtual Chief Information Security Officer, and for that purpose you are charging a certain monthly fee. Or you might use this outcome-based pricing model, which basically says that if you achieve a certain goal, then you will receive your fee, or let's say your bonus on top of your fee. And you might use this actually for, let's say, implementation project for your ISO 9001, and say that you will actually achieve a bonus if this company gets certified, let's say within, I don't know, 6 months or something like this. But this kind of an approach is very risky, and you might actually start offering this kind of outcome-based pricing only after you're very sure that you will succeed with what you're offering. Now, how do you set your initial consulting rates? For that purpose, first you have to analyze what is the market price for your specific niche, for your specific types of services. And you can research the pricing of your competitors in a couple of ways. First, you can check their websites. In some cases, actually, they show their prices transparently on the website, so that you actually can learn directly from there. Then you can check these job platforms, some generic ones like Upwork, but more probably platforms like TopTal and Clarity FM, where these specialized services are offered towards clients, because there you will get a much better idea on what kind of prices these experts are charging. Then you can also ask this question in some online communities like Reddit. You know, most likely some people will actually answer your question about pricing of consultants. Then you can also check some industry rate reports from, let's say, Gartner or IDC or these kind of companies. But you can also do this a secret shopper test, where you can ask your friend who has a company to actually ask for a couple of quotes from your competitors, and then this would be the way for you to find out what the pricing is. Finally, if you have a buyer with whom you're very friendly, then you can also ask this buyer to basically give you some kind of a range of prices that other consultants are charging. Now, with these two last suggestions that I gave you, you have to be very careful and stay within some ethical limits. And what is even more important is that you should not go below the prices of your competitors, not only because this would not be ethical, but also because you should not compete on price. As I mentioned earlier, if you go with the lowest price, you will be perceived as a consultant with the lowest quality, and this is something you do not want to achieve. What you want to achieve is that you are actually pricing either somewhere in the middle, or that you're actually towards more expensive ones, but that you have this specific USP, unique selling point, that no one else has from your competitors, and that you can actually charge more exactly because of this USP. And of course, when you're calculating your rate, you also have to take into account your costs, primarily the amount of time that you will be spending per each project. And this is something that I already explained earlier in this course. Now, how do you negotiate about these prices, and how do you communicate these prices to potential clients? You'll have to prepare upfront for two situations, or at least these two situations. The first one is if someone has objections towards your pricing, and the second one is if they try to actually reduce your price. The objections for pricing can go in several directions. For example, they can say that the prices are not transparent enough, that they're not explained enough. In this case, you have to be ready actually to display these prices in a more transparent, more clear way. If potential clients say that your prices, let's say per hour or per man day, are too high, then you have to be able to explain them why this is so. For example, you might say that you will achieve the same goal with a shorter amount of time, and this is why you actually charge more when compared to your competitors for a man day, because the clients are actually getting a better service. Potential clients can also respond that they say, okay, this is so expensive that it's much better if they do it on their own. Then you have to explain what kind of preparation and know-how and tools are needed actually for them to do it on their own, so that they actually see that this is very difficult. If they ask you to reduce the price, then you have to be prepared to suggest them actually how to decrease the scope, so that not everything is included in the scope of the project as initially proposed, but that you are actually cutting down some things that might not be very needed. Alternative way actually to negotiate the price decrease is that you actually keep the price the same, but that you're actually offering more services within this price. So for example, in the implementation project, you also include the training, which you initially didn't include, especially if this training is delivered through a training platform, so where you do not have some larger additional costs. Okay, so let me conclude this lesson with a couple of mistakes that you should avoid. So as already mentioned, you should not go with the lowest price. Definitely not. Second, you have to manage this scope creep very carefully. In other words, you have to specify very clearly in your proposal and after that in your contract what is exactly included in your consulting job, but also you have to specify what is excluded, so that this is very clear. So for example, you can say that for your NIS2 project, you are including actually the initial draft of all the policies and procedures, but that all further revisions of this document have to be made by the client itself, not by you. Or you can also say that you will help them actually with the risk assessment by identifying all the assets and threats and vulnerabilities and these kind of things, but that you cannot actually make decisions on the level of impact or likelihood, that actually they are the ones that have to decide on these things. And the third mistake is actually that you are not making your prices transparent within your proposal. So you should actually break down your whole project into milestones, and for each milestones you have to define what the pricing is, so that your clients are very clear what they are getting throughout the whole project. Okay, hope this was helpful, and let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about pricing for consulting services, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And here are a couple of materials that will help you learn more, and you'll find the links below. So first of all, you have this advanced course for consultants, which actually has several lessons on how to sell your services, how to present them to your clients, how to convert potential leads into customers, and so on. Second, I have this secure and simple podcast, and I'm the host there, and this is where I interview successful consultants, and very often these consultants actually show how they're actually pricing their projects and how do they compete in these very competitive markets. So you can also learn from this first-hand experience on how to set your pricing. Also, you might check this training platform that we call Company Training Academy that you can use as a consultant, where you can actually offer these training videos for your clients and therefore create this additional offering. And in the next lesson of this course, I'll explain actually how you can get your first clients now that you have all the things in place. So basically how to reach out to your network and start selling your services. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel not to miss any of my new videos, and I publish videos about cybersecurity and compliance every week. Thanks for watching.